now to Gaza, where the bodies of humanitarian workers killed by an Israeli strike have arrived at the border with Egypt to begin their final journeys home. And these are the faces of the 6 men and 1 woman, including a dual American-Canadian citizen who were just trying to help people not starve. And there is powerful new reaction from the founder of the World Central Kitchen, Chef Jose Andres, writing in a New York Times op-ed that the victims were far more than heroes. Their work was based on the simple belief that food is a universal human right. It is not conditional on being good or bad, rich or poor, left or right. He writes, "We do not ask what religion you belong to. We just ask how many meals you need." And joining us now, NBC News International correspondent Molly Hunter, former State Department senior advisor Nayyera Haq, and retired Lieutenant General Steph Twitty. Molly, let's start with just the latest on the attack itself. What more are we learning about how this happened?
Anna, we are learning more, and actually I just want to pick up on something that you said in your intro. In the last half hour, we have just learned from the Egyptian Red Crescent, actually, that the bodies of 6 of those aid workers have actually crossed the border into Egypt. We assume those bodies are heading from Rafah, Egypt, to Cairo. But we do have a little bit more information. You can see those pictures again of the victims. We do have more information on exactly how that attack happened. We know from World Central Kitchen that they were leaving a warehouse in Deir al-Balah, that is in the center of the Gaza Strip. They had just unloaded food into that warehouse. Now, NBC News has independently verified and located each of the destroyed vehicles. 2 armored vehicles, 1 soft-shell vehicle, and you can see them on your screen right now. And the photos show 3 separate precision strikes, a missile strike, 1 car completely burned out, and 1 car basically totaled over a 1.5 mile stretch on a coastal road. Now, Human Rights Watch is describing the strikes as precision. We actually have a quote from a statement from Human Rights Watch this morning. Senior crisis and conflict researcher Richard Weir says Israel's deadly attack on World Central Kitchen aid workers in Gaza displays the characteristics of a precision airstrike, indicating that the Israeli military intended to hit these vehicles. Now, Anna, we have talked for weeks, for months, about how dangerous and how hard it is to get aid specifically into the north of the Gaza Strip. And John Kirby actually spoke about the outrage, but also about the other victims and the challenges that humanitarian workers face. Take a listen.
We were outraged to learn of an IDF strike that killed a number of civilian humanitarian workers yesterday from the World Central Kitchen, which has been relentless in working to get food to those who are hungry in Gaza and, quite frankly, around the world. We send our deepest condolences to their families and loved ones. More than 200 aid workers have been killed in this conflict, making it one of the worst for aid workers in recent history. This incident is emblematic of a larger problem and evidence of why distribution of aid in Gaza has been so challenging.
And you heard from John Kirby right there, an estimated 200 aid workers, that is an estimate by the UN, killed in Gaza and the occupied West Bank just since October. Anna, now World Central Kitchen says they are currently pausing their operations, but they have not yet suspended their vital operations in Gaza. Anna?
Molly Hunter, thank you for that reporting. General Twitty, the IDF is saying this was a mistake. They're calling it a misidentification at night during war. But World Central Kitchen says that they were in contact with the Israeli officials. Their vehicles were marked, and that they believe an Israeli sniper had fired at one of its vehicles just days earlier. So what's really going on here?
Well, obviously, there are a couple of things that have happened here, Anna. In my view, there's not enough being done to establish proper coordination between Israel and the humanitarian effort. And Israel has to put that as priority number 1 if they intend to be successful in this war. They have to protect the people. They have to protect the humanitarian workers that are trying to get the humanitarian supplies to the people. And so a couple of things here. No air cap or no fly zone. That is a must when you have humanitarian folks that are operating. So you got to put a no fly zone and prevent Israeli soldiers from flying in that area. You have to build safe route corridors to allow the humanitarian aid to come in and out, and there's no firing on the safe fire corridors. You have to establish liaison between the two, the humanitarian groups and Israel Defense Forces, so they can communicate. And you have to establish a joint combined operations center for further coordination. So there's a lot of detail here that you have to do.
Right.
And you can do all this still while you're fighting.
But this has been months now, and they've had the opportunity to establish all of that. I mean, they're calling this a mistake, but the group Human Rights Watch says there are characteristics that this was a precision strike, implying that these workers were targeted. General, they weren't just collateral damage.
So it appears to me. It appears to me that there was no doubt an intelligence failure here. And it goes back to all the things that I'm talking about that needs to be in place so that coordination happens to ensure that there's no intelligence failure. It probably was a direct firing and intended, but it was a mistake on who was in the vehicles, in my view. We'll see after the investigation is complete. But there's no doubt that this was a targeted attack.
Nayyirah?
The attack was indeed conducted by a drone. And what we know from Israeli sources and IDF sources in Israeli media is that the drone hit 3 separate times. So it was not just one moment. There were 3 separate moments in which this drone pursued these aid workers. And also in Israeli reporting, we know that World Food Kitchen had actually coordinated the entire path with IDF. They were aware of when and how and exactly where they were going. Now, there's a massive disconnect with what is happening in, say, headquarters and what the rules of engagement are that they know, where you need to protect civilians. And they are now saying at IDF headquarters that the people on the ground in Gaza, Israeli forces, are effectively making their own decisions, as people do in the fog of war. But their decisions are ultimately based on this idea that Hamas is everywhere, that anybody in Gaza could be Hamas, and they take that liberty to then target people accordingly.
And Nayyirah, President Biden is saying he is outraged. He noted that this is, quote, not a standalone incident. This conflict has been one of the worst in recent memory in terms of how many aid workers have been killed. I wonder, is this a tipping point for U.S. support for Israel?
Well, we're certainly seeing a lot of outrage because of the connection to a celebrity chef who is popular in the American imagination. And frankly, United Nations workers, Palestinian aid workers who have been killed in trying to deliver aid have not gotten this much attention. So there is a relatability challenge here. President Biden called Jose Andres. That is part of the connection. Now, at the same time, the Biden administration is asking for $18 billion of arms sales that include 50 fighter jets to Israel, as well as missiles, as well as military training. So there is a disconnect between what is being said on the humanitarian front in regret and condolences and the reality of what is actually happening on the military front. And the American public certainly knows that those two are deeply connected and can no longer be separated.
General Chef Jose Andres, in that very poignant op-ed, was quite critical about the broader strategy Israel appears to be deploying. He writes in part, in the worst conditions, after the worst terrorist attack in its history, it's time for the best of Israel to show up. You cannot save the hostages by bombing every building in Gaza. You cannot win this war by starving an entire population. General, is he right?
He absolutely is right. Let's just take a look here. So Israel set out with 3 objectives. Number 1, to eradicate Hamas. Number 2, to secure release of the hostages. And number 3, to stop the raining down of missiles going into Israel. We're here at 6 months now, and none of those objectives have been accomplished. And all 3 of these objectives are extremely hard, but you have to figure out how are you going to execute this war and put the people first and foremost. Part of urban combat is ensuring that you're taking care of the non-combatants as you execute warfare. And neither of those things are aligning at this point for Israel.
Lieutenant General Steph Twitty and Nayyirah Haq, thank you both. I really appreciate your insights, your expertise.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.